All right. Let's get fired up here.
Maximum freedom. Read.
Stay on target.
Maximum freedom.
Stay on target.
Maximum freedom. Read Rothbardian.
Hello and welcome to the Actual Anarchy podcast. We're back at it again with part 2 of The Dark Knight. This will be episode 29. You can find it at actualanarchy.com/29. And coming back is our guest, Shahin, from last week. But first, let's say hello to Robert and do a little bit of housekeeping, and then we'll bring our guest back on.
Hello, Robert. How you doing? Oh, I'm pretty good. Thanks, buddy. You're the best. I know. Hey, Dan. How's it going, man?
It's going well. Speaking of Roberts, I just added a bunch of Robert Heinlein quotes to our site at actualanarchy.com/quotes, and they are super good. So
they are good? What's one of them? What's your favorite one?
Do check those ones out. Well, there was one we were talking about pre-show, which is there's nothing in this world so permanent as a temporary emergency. And you see this all the time with governments saying that they need this extra power, this extra authority, or this extra program just in the short term. But, of course, those temporary emergencies become permanent. And I think Hazlitt says, and Shahin can correct me on this when we bring him back on, but there's nothing so permanent as a temporary government program, I think was the Hazlitt quote.
Yeah, because you got people who get hired on to do this new thing, and then they're not just going to stick around and be, I guess I'm done with my job. No, they're going to find a reason to either fail at their job or some kind of reason to justify their job or get hired on in another department, and it's just on and on it goes, baby.
That's right, baby. And speaking of babies, let's bring on Shahin. He's a young man from Adelaide, Australia. He is a second-time guest, but still talking about the first movie. It's The Dark Knight, the Batman with Heath Ledger and Christian Bale. And this was all brought about because Adam West, who did the campy 60s Batman, died last week or a week and a half ago now. So we're jumping on those coattails. We've been planning on doing a Batman episode for a while now anyway, and now is as good a time as any. So welcome back to the show, Shahin. Why don't you reintroduce yourself to the audience and correct me on my Hazlitt?
Oh, hey, it's good to be back. And to be honest, I'm not actually too sure. I think that's the quote. I'm not even 100% sure if it's from Hazlitt or Milton Friedman. It's either or.
Good enough for this show. So tell us how you've been the last week or so, and how can people get a hold of you if you're open to that? Are you open to people tweeting at you and whatnot?
Sure, go ahead. For the past week, I've just been having exams at university, at my communist university, and I've just been super busy with that. After this, I have to go study some more, but don't worry, I can just stay. I can just cram it all in the night before. I always do that. And I wouldn't mind people just finding me on Twitter. That's pretty much my only ANCAP platform, because
For now, I'm going to get you writing for us though.
Oh yeah, definitely. I actually thought of a couple of articles. I would have written them if it wasn't for my exams. They're still in my head.
So speaking of that, are you enjoying the regurgitation, memorization regurgitation format? Do you feel like you're actually learning something, or?
I think I'm learning because I've always been the kind of, I wouldn't like a course unless I'd learn it or unless I could just understand how it worked, which is why I usually do maths and physics and just engineering types of courses. I didn't really enjoy chemistry too much because there was too much memorization. Yeah, I just always preferred maths and physics.
Well, because you're actually going to go into a STEM field where you're going to be using this stuff on a daily basis, right? Because, the math and science that I learned in school is pretty much all out the window at this point.
Yeah, I think school's mostly pointless. Most people would just be better off not even going.
Yeah, unless you're using it for a specific purpose. A lot of the general knowledge gets lost.
Yeah, like I think I would have been much far better off if I just did a Ron Paul homeschool instead of going to school here or in Iran.
Right.
Yeah, that's our plan for our kids, is to do the homeschooling and most likely that Ron Paul program. And Tom Woods has a link to that I think is Tom, or is ronpaulhomeschool.com, and you get some extra bonuses if you sign up through him. We're not quite ready for it just yet. They just turned 4, and the youngest is turning 2 next week.
Okay, well, happy birthday.
I'm going to play this for them. They can hear this.
Very nice.
So thank you.
All good. You know, what time does school start? Like, how old does someone have to be? 6 or 7? I think I started when I was 6.
Yeah, I mean,
that sounds about
when
right,
you're
'cause
18, there's 12 years plus kindergarten, so that's like 5 or 6, right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yep, segregated by size and shape and common age. I mean, what's not to like?
Yeah. It was, school was awkward. I'm so glad I finished high school. Oof, God. I just, like, towards the end, I'd reached a stage where I was just bludgeoning every single lesson. With every single one of my teachers, I'd maxed out on my excuses, and they were all starting to get really angry with me. I delayed every single assignment. I didn't fully study for any test because it was just so tedious, the schoolwork.
Mm.
And
did you already been accepted to your university? Or?
Oh yeah. I still did okay. I studied at my own pace.
And were you saying bludgeoning? Because that's kind of awesome.
Oh yeah. Is that a term used in the U.S. as well?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, we have a bludgeon, which is like an object that you would use to beat something with.
Well, bludgeoning here means, well, to bludge is the word, is the verb. When I say I'm bludgeoning, it means I'm skipping classes, means I'm running away.
Okay. Does it mean like screwing off or fucking off, like just kind of doing your own thing? Blow it off kind of deal?
Not really. When someone says they're bludgeoning, it pretty much means that they're skipping school. Like if there's one thing I could equate it to, is just skipping school or skipping a class.
Okay, so we used to say playing hooky. Are you familiar with that term?
Playing hooky? No, I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, that specifically means skipping school.
Yeah, I don't know why it means that, but we're learning new stuff on this episode, talking about the school. Well, anyway, let's get back to our movie, shall we? We got about halfway through last time. I believe the last scene we had gotten to was the press conference where the Batman was about to reveal himself to stop the Joker from killing a bunch of these copy bats, because he had been killing people until Batman unmasked. Do we want to talk about that scene at all, or just move right into Dent says he's the Batman, they arrest him, and they're going to transfer him to the, the county jail, and there's this escort with a SWAT team and a bunch of other police vehicles and a helicopter, and of course the Joker intervenes.
Yeah.
So so this is all a big
there.
trap for the Joker, right? Or was it? Do you think Dent was aware of this being set up? Or was he? Because
I think Dent knew that something would happen, because then afterwards he says, "I trusted Batman to save my ass."
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the Joker.
He knew something would have happened.
Yeah, he knew that the Joker had put him as the next one to be killed. And so he knew that he'd come after him.
Okay.
But of course what he didn't know, plot twist, is the Joker wanted to be caught.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for somebody who says he's not a planner or a schemer, he sure does have an amazing scheme and plan going out through this whole movie. It's very, very intricate. It's kind of ridiculous, but, I mean, whatever, it's a movie.
Yeah, so one of the points I wanted to bring up during this whole scene, and he is a big schemer, which maybe is a bit ironic when he has the bedside chat with Harvey later and says that everyone's a schemer but him. But this goes back to when Batman is like trying to catch up to the convoy, and he's like shooting cars to get them out of his way, like shooting them with missiles. And there's this little micro scene of these kids in a parked car, like making finger guns, like bing, 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 and then real explosions start to happen. You know, and of course it's Batman, like clearing a path. And it just shows me again that there could be people in any of these vehicles, and Batman's just indiscriminately blowing them up. So for a guy who says that he doesn't like guns and he's not going to take a life, in fact, that's a huge point in the movie, that the Joker wants the Batman to break his moral code, his one prime directive of not killing, and he welcomes Batman to kill him, the Joker. But he knows that he won't do it because he's quote-unquote principled, but he's just willy-nilly out shooting missiles at cars just to clear a path. And in our pre-show, we were talking about how Hitler was terrible because he mixed intent and racism with murder, whereas Stalin and Lenin and Mao and all these other people who have similar kill counts didn't target anyone directly. It wasn't a race thing or whatever, so it was just indiscriminate killing, and that was sort of okay now with leftists, like they're not so concerned about that. I'm drawing a very very long thread to connect these two things, but do you guys have any points on that?
What I always thought of that scene was that the car where the kids are in is in the traffic, and the other cars were just parked on the side. So I always thought that Batman just knew that they were empty.
Yeah, I could see that would be like the director's excuse, is that Batman has the technology and he knows and blah, blah, blah. But he still doesn't care about like property.
The private property, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of like a cop who will call up like 10 other cops and they'll chase after some guy who makes an illegal left-hand turn or something like that, and he'll break like 20 traffic laws and drive recklessly and whatever to try and catch that person. I mean, I mean, in comic book movies and in traditional comic books, they're notorious for not giving a shit about property damage at all. There are even joke comic books like called Damage Incorporated, and there's another one for DC, who come in and repair all the damage that the superheroes do when they're fighting their big criminals and whatnot. Very few. I mean, we did a show for the Voluntarius comic, and it was refreshing to hear that the Voluntarius superhero makes a point and cares about the property damage, because it takes time and it takes money, and that is the universal currency of humanity. So when you are destroying someone's property, you are messing with their livelihood and their life.
But I thought that destruction was good for the economy.
Broken window, sir. Yes, it's super great.
I mean, Paul Krugman told me this. I don't know. I mean, he's a genius behind Greece and the European Union, so he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah,
he's an award-winning economist, sir.
Here we are communicating via fax, right?
Yeah. I just hope that Bruce Wayne has a charity that pays for all the damage that he did. It wouldn't cost him that much. I mean, just a couple of exploded cars and a couple of broken windows and things.
That's a good point, though. I want to chase on this one because he's running Wayne Enterprises, right? He's this big capitalist, probably providing a lot of jobs. Right, but probably providing a lot of jobs and a lot of benefit. That's what companies do when, you're getting a job, you're trading your time for something that you prefer more, which is money, and you can buy it with the necessities of life. And so you could argue that he's already doing a whole lot of quote-unquote social good. And
he does have a charity. I mean, in Dark Knight Rises, it's revealed that he funds an orphanage. Like Wayne Enterprises, like a lot of the profits go towards an orphanage.
Okay, yeah, so he's a decent guy all around.
Yeah, and in the comics too, Bruce Wayne's just notorious for being a philanthropist, just donating here and here. So I'd assume he'd try to at least have a charity for the property he damages. Or maybe he just really doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, it's not explicitly stated, so we're free to talk about the morality of it. But we'd like to think that he probably does care, and that he's just so focused on stopping a greater problem of the Joker.
He's just willing to make the sacrifice.
Right, he's willing to pay those costs.
Yeah. Now we mentioned that the cars were likely parked and unoccupied, but what about when he's on the Bat bike and he's driving through the mall? I mean, people have to run to get out of the way. So they could have easily gotten maimed, right, under those big fat tires.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, he's famous for killing all kinds of people in other movies. Not so much this movie, but other movies. He's absolutely murdered many people. When he's famous in comic books for never doing it, but he has to not kill anybody in this movie because that's what the whole movie is about.
When you say Batman's killed in the other movies, which movies do you mean? Do you mean the Tim Burton ones with Michael Keaton? I think he.
Yeah.
I remember killing a couple people
and
there.
I'm sorry, what?
I remember him killing, throwing a guy off the bell tower or putting dynamite in someone's pants.
Oh yeah, he definitely he murdered a bunch of people in Batman '89, and he also killed a few people in Batman versus Superman.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah, with the whole Batmobile chase scene.
Exactly. Yeah, he attaches a hook to a car and he pulls it around after him where he gets flattened and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, he definitely murders a bunch.
To his defense, they were shooting at him, so he had every right to defend himself.
Oh, absolutely. But his big rule is to never kill, even in self-defense, because he's Batman and he doesn't have to, right? Because he's so good. He has so many toys and whatever. He doesn't have to do it.
Yeah.
Whereas I give him a pass on self-defense, but he doesn't do it for himself.
To be honest, it was kind of refreshing to see Batman going back to killing in BVS.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I just think of it. I don't think of it as ruining Batman. I just think of it as a different version of Batman because there are some comics, like alternate dimension comics in the DC multiverse where there's different Batmans who do kill. So it was an interesting take. Yeah,
I don't mind it when a director, especially if I enjoy the director, has a take on a character where this is a whole new universe. This is the Batman that exists in my universe, and this is what Batman is like and what he does in this universe. That's fine, as long as people, the fans are like, well, that's not really my Batman. And like, okay, that's fine. Well, it wasn't necessarily intended. This is this director's Batman. It doesn't necessarily work for me, like in, say, Man of Steel, when Superman flattens half of Metropolis, and you're like, well, Superman, the Superman I know would never do that. This is so antithetical to what I know of Superman to be. And then I have issues with that. But, we're talking about Batman. Doesn't matter. So let's move on to the next scene. Okay, what happens next?
The truck scene. I just have a note written down for the truck that it's a Muslim driver. Like Joker's a Muslim in that scene. I mean,
in that when he's driving the semi truck.
Yeah, because he's just trying to ram it into people and everything. I mean, Muslims are also notorious now for using trucks to ram into people. So.
I see what you're saying.
Oh yeah, that has been in the news lately. So, are you talking about the semi truck or the garbage truck or the personal?
I'm talking about the scene where Batman uses the bat pod, the bike, shoots the wires into the semi truck, and then just hits into the ground, makes it flip.
Oh, right, yeah. That's the iconic scene I remember from this, from back when I first saw it.
Yeah. I mean that should be a weapon everyone should have. We should have recreational nukes and bat bikes. What's wrong with that? We need to have that.
Yeah, so what was cool was he showed all this skill in being able to do that, like go under the tires and then wrap it around the light poles and everything like that. And then the thing flips over, Joker gets out, and he's like, come on, do it, kill me. And Batman's bearing down on him, but then he pulls this totally weak move to avoid killing the Joker and just lays there prone on the ground, like passed out. And the Joker's about to kill him. But then
Gordon comes out.
Yeah, Gordon comes up and puts a gun on him and arrests Joker. But it just seemed really weird that Batman could fall off a building after Rachel and land without getting killed. He can do all this acrobatic type stuff, especially later in the film when he's in that not quite completed building. So he's jumping up and down the elevator shaft and all of these things. But just avoiding killing the Joker with the Batbike, he's gonna go ass over tea kettle and crack his skull.
Get knocked out. Yeah. No, you're right. It seemed like a thing that had to happen for the script. It didn't make any sense for his power set But that happens a lot in movies, superhero movies, where all of a sudden the superhero is super strong, and then the next minute he's not because the plot needs it to be. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, Dan.
Yeah, it just seems like kind of cheap. But anyway, moving on from there, so they send Harvey in a police escort back to wherever, and Rachel similar. And they have the Joker now in prison, thinking that they've accomplished this great feat. Is there any points you guys want to make in this area?
Yeah, and they're talking. I don't necessarily have points, but I mean, we're talking about the interrogation scene where Batman starts assaulting Joker. Is he justified in doing so? That sort of thing. Because Joker wants to find out where Rachel and Harvey are, and Joker's like, their morals, their code is a bad joke. Dropped at the first sign of trouble. And that's true of pretty much anybody. I think most people, especially politicians and that sort of thing, having a morality, but it really is absolutely dropped at the drop of a hat. I mean, they only have it when it suits them. Like, we need to go in and save the poor Kuwaitis, and we need to do this and that. I mean, it's a huge joke where they pay lip service to morality. Something that it came to my mind during that scene was, I thought if Batman is an ANCAP, then Joker would be an anarcho-communist who says, like, you're a freak like me, we're just ahead of the curve, except Joker's the chaotic, murderous freak. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty good, actually, yeah. He's very. And then when they say, all these other people are, I forgot what he said about everyone else, but they're just the statists, and they would drop their morals and support some politician at the drop of a hat. That's kind of what I thought would have happened, while Batman would have just stayed loyal to his morals no matter what. Right, yeah, and this movie is all about Joker trying to get Batman to give up on his one rule about not killing people, where he wants to fight so hard to keep that rule. I like how, the Joker is really all about exposing people for being uncivilized, because he says, like, when the chips are down, these civilized people will eat each other. And I'm reminded of, what's the saying? I think we're only like 14 days away from cannibalism or something like that.
I think they say nine meals. 9 meals. So
9 meals?
Yeah.
Oh, that's even worse. Okay. But yeah, if there was some massive disruption, in all the post-apocalyptic type movies and entertainment, really play off of this, like especially like The Road and other things like that. But how far away? The thin veneer of society, how paper thin it is, and if you just need a little push, and then all of a sudden we'll be eating each other. It's kind of a knock against anarchy in a way, but as we've pointed out numerous times on this show, we essentially live most of the time in anarchy, and it's actually quite strong. But it's fun to watch entertainment. I don't know how accurate it is. Daniel, do you have any thoughts on how accurate, like post-apocalyptic? We did a Mad Max episode, but we haven't necessarily done a post-apocalyptic thin veneer of society episode in general. Do you have thoughts on how realistic those things are? Do you think we'd really be eating each other if the trucks, without 9 meals later?
Well, I just looked it up real quickly, and the quote is actually from 1906 by Alfred Henry Lewis, who stated, quote, "There are only 9 meals between mankind and anarchy." And I think they mean, of course, the chaotic anarchy, the breakdown of society. And
because I was going to say, let's starve everyone for 9 meals, and we can have anarchy.
That'd be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Let's get on with it. That'd be great.
I don't think it's like a scientific study. I think it's more of a quip type thing. It would probably take longer, I would imagine, but it is a misrepresentation of what anarchy is. I think that there is an older saying that no man is farther than 9 meals away from revolution. So that one might be more in line with what you have in mind, Shahin. Like we're actually evolving, having a revolution beyond the current status paradigm. But yeah, we could do another post-apocalyptic movie. We've got a big old list of movies to do. some point, so I'm sure we'll hit one of those at some venture down the road, and maybe it'll even be the road. Who knows?
Yeah, I know somebody wants us to do, what is that, The Purge? But that's not exactly the same. But it is like the one day you don't have government rules, and so you're going to go out and kill everybody.
Mm.
Yeah, and it also misrepresents anarchy.
It just says no rules.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, chaotic anarchy.
Right, yeah, so there's this quote from the Joker in that scene where he says the only sensible way to live in this world is without rules. So that's very much a nihilistic, chaotic perspective. As ANCAP, I tend to believe that there's really only one rule, two rules essentially, which is baked into
non-aggression principle.
Non-aggression and private property rights, yeah. So, I don't know, the kind of the world Joker is talking about here. I mean, what would it even look like? Would it just be this massive dog-eat-dog?
I think it'll just be do whatever you want, no rules at all.
So, would the murder rate go up?
I think there'd be nothing but murder.
I think we'd go back to being very, very primitive, and the population would shrink significantly. Because what would you eat, right? What would you cultivate? Who would be able to save any capital? Who would make a coat factory to make coats, especially in the winter down there in Australia? Like, none of those things would be able to happen if it was all...
I've still got this coat.
For now. You're 9 meals away from not having that coat.
Yeah,
anyway.
Without private property, you'd be like, huddling in caves and camping in the forest or something?
Well, yeah, but it wouldn't be your cave. It would just be a cave.
This sounds a lot like anarcho-primitivism. Primitivism. What is it? It's like the black and green flag.
Yeah.
Which is just
they
stupid.
think it's real bad. It's like all the benefits. They usually come up with these things and they type it out on their computers and then they upload it to the internet and talk about. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Go back to nature. That's the way to do it.
And
right.
All these other anarchy groups are just so stupid. Anarcho-communists and they believe that there can be a sort of way to centrally plan without a state. And then they say anarcho-capitalism needs a state for private property rights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's real bad. Real bad. But they're the ones that are oppressed by nature, and that everybody, if you don't want to hang out with them, if you don't want to associate with them, you're oppressing them somehow.
Mm-hmm.
They feel like they're being forced to participate in the market because of scarcity.
The same way a lion is enslaved when he has to hunt.
Yep, exactly. Yep. Exactly. Well, but those gazelles exist. Somebody should, hunt those gazelles for him and provide it for him. For some reason. We don't know why, but just for some reason.
Right, yeah, the giraffe doesn't need the long neck. It should just be able to lay down on the ground and have the cud fed to it from the leaves, right?
I saw a post once about a bunch of anarcho-communists showing a post or a video about someone who made an entire city on Minecraft, recreated an entire city. You know what Minecraft is? The building game.
Yeah, I've seen some crazy shit.
And then they said this is proof.
Spend like years to make.
Yeah, they said this is proof that people don't need to get paid to work. They literally equate playing a video game to real life and real work.
That's hilarious. That's a funny thing that the ANCOMs, they don't realize that people do get paid. Whether you're essentially profiting from everything you do. If it's as long as your action is voluntary, you are receiving some sort of benefit. Like right now, I'm not actually getting paid physical money or any.
But you're getting paid in your freedom, not being at work.
Sure, or I'm getting paid in the knowledge or the good conversation or whatever.
Mm.
Whatever it is, I'm getting paid all kinds of different ways. But it's for some reason the ANCOMs, they think of one form of payment as immoral and another form of payment is perfectly fine, or they just don't recognize it as payment. I don't really understand what they believe. Who knows? But let's move on.
Move on to the next
Daniel.
part.
Well, I think they'll have us read The Conquest of Bread, and then we'll get it.
Oh, yeah.
Then we'll understand it?
then we'll understand it. So everyone, go to theconquestofred.com or conquestofred.com, and you'll learn all about it.
Sounds good. Do
wink,
that.
wink, winky face. All right.
So, Joker is getting beat up, and Batman's beating the crap out of him. And Joker says that there's only enough time to save one of them, and he lies to Batman. Doesn't he lie to Batman and says that Rachel is in one place and that Dent's in the other? So Batman thinks he's going after to save Rachel, but he actually goes and saves Dent instead.
Mm-hmm.
And then
was that a choice? Was that a choice Batman made, or was that the Joker deceiving him?
The Joker deceived him. Batman said that he was going to go after Rachel.
Right. That's what I
gave him the wrong address.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this plays back to our previous episode where we had the gun to your family's head, and you're supposed to negotiate with the guy breaking into your building, right? Into your house.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you already know you can't trust the Joker, right? So why would you believe any negotiation that you're going to make with him? And this ties back to the argument we were talking about earlier, where you were saying lesser of two evils is sometimes the option, like between Hillary and Trump, the Walter Block argument, to which I say political campaign promises are lies. So if Batty A says they're going to, beat you 5 times and Batty B says, well, I was going to do it 10 times, you don't know which one would have done what anyway, because they're never going to go with their campaign promise.
True. You can't. There's no kind of accountability ever held to these monsters. So,
yeah, and I think the Joker, he lies like all the time. In fact, maybe he lies more than I am realizing upon viewing it, because he tells his getting the scar story 2 or 3 times differently each time.
Mm-hmm.
He goes to Harvey Dent's bedside after this explosion thing happens that we were just talking about, and is like, all of you are schemers and have plans. I don't have any plans. I just do things. I'm like a wild rabid dog. Another lie. He has the most intricately thought out plans. Everything's in place. Like, how the hell did he know which street to have his goons on for the helicopter to get ensnared in their lines? You know what I mean?
Or to have the telephone inside the guy's stomach. Which, about that guy, I thought like he was saying, oh, the guy said he'd make the voices disappear. He said he'll replace everything with happiness. And you remember that guy?
Yeah, with light.
Pretty light guy.
I thought of him as a Bernie Sanders supporter. like, oh, Bernie's going to come save everyone.
He made all these promises.
I guess he felt the burn.
Yeah, he felt the burn from his Obama burner phone.
Yeah.
Took it too far. Sorry. Oh, speaking of Batman being an ANCAP, he does fly the black and gold. So I just put my bat sock up here that has that. So our Patreon subscribers, go to patreon.com/ReadRothbard, and you can pay a little bit of money and see this beautiful, beautiful article of clothing that's on my microphone, as well as my new black and gold mic, and you can see our guest, who is looking very great. Do you guys use the term jumper?
Oh, yeah.
Sweater? Yeah. He's looking pretty suave in his jumper.
We don't use the word swab, though.
Oh. Well, you're learning stuff from us, too.
All the time.
All right, so Joker breaks out of prison. Rachel blows up. Dent gets disfigured. And where do we go from
there was a scene in the talk that Bruce had with Alfred afterwards. There's one note I took is, like, if you remember, they talked about a guy in Burma in the forest who stole the jewels.
Yep.
When the Alfred said, and then Alfred says,
and like for no reason, right?
Yeah, and then Bruce asked him, "Did you ever find that guy?" And he says, "Yeah." He says, "How'd you do it?" He says, "We burnt the forest down." I just thought that just showed that sometimes you have to take completely drastic measures and just do something really crazy and like something really extreme in order to defeat someone or to do something.
Right, and that's
it's kind of weird. Sorry, but for me, it seemed like Christopher Nolan was writing a weird Batman, because all of a sudden, Batman's having trouble finding the Joker, this guy that is broadcasting on TV. He's doing all this crap all throughout the city, and for some reason, the Batman, who's like the greatest detective, that's one thing that is over and over again, the Batman is the greatest detective in the world. And he just can't find the Joker for some reason. It makes zero to little sense, but I understand how, I mean, it works sense for the plot, but for me, all of a sudden, Batman's just this guy who's a moron and doesn't have all his, like, low-life flunkies that he could, like, get information out of, or all this high-tech stuff that he can use to find the guy. I mean, later on in the movie, he uses this cell phone thing where he turns the entire city into this NSA light kind of spying situation.
I think that's the whole thing that's comparable to burning the whole forest down.
The NSA situation?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like dropping a he's foreshadowing that. Like he's saying that because Alfred burned the forest down, which is it doesn't leave a good taste in your mouth, but he did it to accomplish his goal, and it was a very drastic step, like Shahin was saying, then that sort of justifies in the mind of the audience using his NSA surveillance thing later on, because he's compromising his principles, and even Lucius Fox is like, I'm not going to work for you anymore if you're going to do this kind of thing. And Batman says, well, it's just this one time we'll do it because the Joker's that bad. But like we just said earlier with the, any temporary emergency is always a forever emergency.
But to Batman's defense, he does actually get rid of it at the end.
Right, but what about the next big thing, right? It doesn't need to be the Joker. What if it's Bane or
that
Penguin or Catwoman or whoever, Yeah,
it does happen with Bane in Dark Knight Rises.
Then
they have no way of tracking it down, so they use other methods to try to prevent it.
Yeah, I see this movie as really a sign of the times where, like, Nolan was inspired by the headlines of the day. Like, this is around the time when all this domestic spying was really coming out, and I don't know if he was trying to justify it or just thought it was a good idea for the Batman to use these measures and kind of justify it.
Is that true, though? I thought Snowden was like 2013, wasn't it? And this is 2007. They're making this thing, probably writing it in 2003, 4, 5.
Yeah, but those headlines are way late. Snowden came out, and that was like old news when he came out.
Well,
to me, it was.
For anyone who listened to
Alex Jones has been saying this for a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
So you think Nolan is a secret Alex Jones listener, like conspiracy theorist? Because it definitely wasn't mainstream at that point.
Well, but Jones wasn't just making it up out of whole cloth. I mean, he was reading headlines. Just because it didn't become big news like Snowden did,
I have the
documents.
documents.
Mean it wasn't reported.
I have the documents. They say it right here. They admit it. Globalists.
Well, one guy, you could actually go to the website, and look at what he's talking about. And not to his website, but like the New York Times or the Washington Post or whatever. I mean, these things were reported. They didn't get as much attention as it did later on. But this is all when the war on terror began. And this is, we got to catch the terrorists all over the place. And if you're colluding with the terrorists, then we need to know about it. So we're going to spy domestically. That was a big thing. It was whether you were spying domestically or not. And whether it was constitutional for the CIA and the NSA to spy domestically or not. And that absolutely came out that they were.
I didn't mean to jump ahead to the NSA spy machine because that's sort of later on in the film.
So where are we at now?
Well, we just blew up Rachel, which I was surprised that they kill her off. And then disfigured Dent. And then Dent goes and seeks revenge against the police people who took him and Rachel. And along the way, he also attacks...
But that's you're getting ahead of yourself. Dent's in the hospital at first.
Oh, right. Yep. Let's do the hospital scene.
So the next scene is essentially the one I have, is where Joker kills Lau.
Yeah, exactly.
Got the big pile of money.
Yeah, he burns
puts Lau on top.
Yeah. I just heard that's a good counter-inflation thing. He's just saying, screw you to the Fed.
Dude, you're doing a good job, like, tying in every single scene to whether it's
I'm just working with what they gave me.
No, you're doing a good job, man.
Thanks.
But what did you think about this scene, Daniel? I mean, he says, all you care about is money. This town deserves a better class of criminal. You think that's an anti-money kind of argument?
I kind of felt like it was, but then you're also having this obviously villainous character say it. So if a villain hates money, then is money really bad? If you're talking about the message that's being skewed out there.
Right.
Maybe that can be linked to the Joker's anarcho-communistic tendencies again, They want to abolish all money, and they say, "Oh, we don't need money. We just need our society. We need a better class of socialists or whatever."
Yeah, the new socialist man is what they need, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Good point.
But the Joker does say after he burns his half of the money that he only needs bombs and bullets and fuses or something like that. Like, these are cheap, but they still cost something. So he still needs at least some money to function.
And they're cheap because of the market.
That's right. Thanks, capitalism. Gave us the Joker. What do you guys think of his taking over the rival gang just with, I don't know, just words? I mean, he's able to turn a phrase pretty well, the Joker, in this one.
Something I noticed about the Joker throughout the whole movie is that he's very manipulative. Like, the whole scene, the way he escapes from the prison, where he tells the guy, "Oh, how many of your friends did I kill? Like, I used a knife on them, and do you want to know if they were really cowards or not?" And then the scene with Dent, how he tries to make Harvey really, really angry, so he goes after other people and starts killing them.
Right.
Yeah, because that all ties back to getting Harvey the White Knight to come down to their level, right? That was the whole plot of the movie, because everyone was looking up to Harvey Dent, and if you can make him do some terrible, terrible things, then not only do the 500 criminals that he was trying to get the RICO case on, but then all of the hope and change that he inspired would be destroyed.
Similar to someone else.
It's like an anti-Obama message or something like that. Like, Obama's really this awesome guy, because this was right about that time, right? Obama's campaigning at this point on hope and change.
Yeah, at least when he's writing this thing, right? Because the writing always happens a couple years prior to production.
Yeah, for the most part,
I don't know if it's a pro-democratic thing, because especially in Dark Knight Rises, there's a lot of anti-Marxism. Like, Bane is pretty much a Marxist, and since Catwoman and them, they say a lot of socialistic things. Like, how could you rich people, like Mr. Wayne, how could you live so large and leave so little for everyone else? And then, they say stuff like that.
Yeah, the communists really do think that people only have it good at the expense of the poor.
And they think wealth is a pie chart. They don't understand that you can actually produce
more.
Or that the pie is bigger now.
Yeah, they think it's a zero-sum game. There's only so much to go around.
Or the loaf of bread, if you will, conquest of bread. Just putting that one.
Good job, Daniel.
It's the new website, everyone. The Conquest of Bread.
What's that book about?
What's what?
The Conquest of Bread.
All right, Robert, you take this one.
It's written by a guy named Peter Kropotkin. I think I want to call it.
The first anarcho-communist.
I don't know if he was the very first, but yeah, he's the one that the ANCOMs really point to as the true ANCOMism. And he pretty much just outlines his ideal society where, I don't know, I was reading it again some more recently, and it sure sounds like he's saying that there's all these coats in these department stores. There's enough for everybody. So let's just go down and take your coats. He's not saying that everybody is going to throw their coats in one pile and then draw lots and then have all the coats get redistributed that way. He's just going to take the ones from people that have a lot of coats, ignoring the idea that, well, there's probably a reason why that guy had an incentive to make that many coats in the first place. And if all of a sudden all his coats would get stolen, he's not going to have any reason to make any. Yeah.
Exactly. And then there's no investments, and they all starve.
Yeah, it's so short-sighted, and it really depends on some kind of weird, non-motivated human being where you invest your labor and you get nothing in return, or you get as much in return as the guy laying on his ass gets return, and then you get resentful of that guy, and I don't know. It's all really terrible.
Well, later on he promises that he's run the numbers, and you can accomplish just as much output working only 4 hours a day. And so he's trying to sell them he's doing the what do you call it, the honeypot? So he's trying to say, follow my, philosophy, and you only have to work 4 hours a day instead of 10 or 12, and we'll still have just as much, and so you'll be incentivized to work really hard in those 4 hours to make sure that the system all works.
I think Rand really destroyed the whole socialism thing when she's talking about the New Millennium Motor Company. If you read that part of Atlas Shrugged, she really destroys that whole idea and the real motivation and incentive problem with communism.
Was that 20th Century Motors, or is it...
whatever it is. It
Okay.
might be new. I don't know. Whatever it is, she's talking about the automobile company, or the motor company.
Right, and Gall is the first one to leave as soon as they adopt this new policy, because he's like, well, this is not going to end well.
Yeah, because it is something like everybody owned everything and everybody got paid the same no matter how hard you worked or what level. Like the street or the guy that swept the floors at night got paid as the top engineer. The top
engineer's not going to work as hard anymore because he's going to get paid the same amount regardless.
Yeah, so the company just went to shit. Which is what happens in a socialist world. So I'm sorry, socialists.
Yeah, so it does sound like the Joker is an ANCOM. You're burning the money. He doesn't need very much, maybe just a personal amount to buy his bullets and bombs and brush his teeth.
With bombs?
Well, personal property you can have, right? So you can brush your teeth, and that's about it.
And how do you decide what is personal property versus private property?
Isn't it just means of production, or is that the thing called mutualism? Isn't mutualism where you can have personal property as long as it's not means of production?
Yeah, but give me a definition for what is means of production. Because if it's a pair of shoes,
human brain,
work and do work.
Yeah, there you go. No one can have a brain, right? In the mutualist society, in the ANCOM society. You know what? They probably achieved their new socialist man. They can't have brains.
There you go.
So they don't.
Move all the brains. I like it.
Zombies, scooping the brains.
So
right,
who has something next?
So we just said so then there was the hospital scene where they blew it up, where Joker blows up the hospital.
Oh yeah, before he talks to, or after he talks to Dent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because then he kidnaps Dent.
He motivates Dent to go and start killing.
Right. You know, one fun note with the blowing up the hospital, as much fun as that could be, Heath Ledger actually
Very
improvised. Fun. He improvised his reation to the pause in the bombing, because I guess something didn't go right, and
it didn't go right. Yeah, I heard of that.
Yeah, so rather than break character, he just continued going on, and then the bomb started again. He's like, oh, and they kept that take because you're blowing shit up, so you gotta have to. You're not gonna rebuild it.
Right. Yeah, I think they actually did demolish a hospital for that scene. Like an old thing, an old building they were actually going to blow up. I don't know if it's a hospital or not, but it was an actual building that they really did blow up. But here's the little quote in this hospital scene where he's talking to Dent. I mean, first of all, he says, do I really look like a guy with a plan? And I think we've answered that question. Yes, throughout this whole movie, he's had done nothing but plan. But he does say a few interesting things. He says, if I say tomorrow a gangbanger or a soldier is going to die, nobody bats an eye because it's all according to the plan. But if I say one little old mare will die, everybody loses their minds. Then he gives Dent a gun, and he says, introduce a little anarchy, upset the established order. Everything becomes chaos. I'm an agent of chaos. And you know the thing about chaos, it's fair. And I tend to agree with him on that. I mean, if everything is chaos and there are no rules or whatever, it's kind of fair in that you're probably just going to get screwed over like everybody else is going to get screwed over. Do you have any thoughts on that? On the fairness of absolute chaos all over the place?
I don't think it would be fair because we're not equal. Like, we all have different abilities, different strengths and weaknesses. Some are bigger than others, some are stronger, some are faster or whatever. So if you want to get into an equality of fairness, then this really would be that dog-eat-dog, like survival of the fittest situation. So I don't know if that would be necessarily fair. Like, if the egalitarians got their way, then no one could be more than 5 feet tall, so, you chop me off at the knees because we all had to be equal height.
Something that I want to add about that scene is if you look closer, you can see Joker has his thumb on the trigger. Oh, not the trigger, on the, what's the thing that when you pull a revolver, it clicks back? Yeah, the hammer. He has his...
Yeah, you don't know that in Australia anymore.
Yeah,
they don't let you have
we don't have guns. Yeah, exactly. If we had gun laws, I just pull the revolver out right here and I'd show you.
Yeah, they're down the memory hole now.
Yeah, it's a shame. I should know this. I mean, this is It puts me to shame. But yeah, his thumb is on the hammer, so even if Harvey did pull the trigger, he wouldn't have died.
Oh, right.
That was another part of his plan, which just further shows how much of a plan he had.
Right. Now, do you guys think that he was just taking advantage of the fact that Dent survived? Or do you think he actually had the plan to have Dent get almost blown up and only half of his face get blown up and all this crap? I mean, there's no way he could have possibly known all that stuff.
I think he assumed that Batman would save one of them.
I think, before in the interrogation scene, he does make a comment about how Batman jumped into Rachel to save her. So I think Joker kind of knew that Batman had feelings for her, and he knew that Batman would go to save Rachel, not Dent, which is why he gave Batman the wrong address. And he knew that the police can't get there in time, so he thought that Rachel would die, Batman would save Harvey by accident, and Harvey would be so pissed off over losing Rachel that he can manipulate him into killing people.
So the disfigurement was just
that was
just extra.
Yeah, that's extra. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that's exactly how it went down. And that's a big plan.
All right, so I don't mean to draw this into the show too much, but did you guys understand what they were talking about when they were trying to figure out which cops were risky? Like they had a relative in the hospital, and then Gordon's in the car with the guy whose wife was in the hospital, and he was going to kill the lawyer dude or the accountant guy. Like it seemed a little fuzzy to me, like why that mattered and how they figured that out.
Yeah, I was paying attention during that part, or for the most part. I mean, the guy was you remember the guy that was going to be killed was the guy that knew who Batman was?
Right, and he was going to reveal, and then Joker called in and said, no, I don't want to have the reveal happen now, so anyone who kills this guy within the next hour
saves the hospital.
Or, do this, or else I will blow up a hospital.
Oh,
and
right.
So then Batman finds out which cops have relatives in the hospital, sends that information to Gordon, and Gordon's like, oh, just so happens to be the guy I'm sitting with has like a wife or a mother in the hospital. So then he takes that shotgun away from the guy.
Right, but they just emptied out the hospitals. So isn't she displaced anyway? Like, what does having that cop have the wife in the hospital with it at being risk of being blown up, what does that accomplish for Joker?
I think the whole point of I think that was another coincidence that happened, because the whole point of blowing up the hospital, and I think Joker was going to do this anyway, was to kidnap Harvey and to set him free. I mean, it was just by pure coincidence that there were some other people who had relatives in that hospital, and then Batman had to find a way to warn Gordon not to trust them so that they wouldn't kill Reese. Okay,
all right. That's good enough for me. Shall we move on to the next scene, or are we not done with this one? Moving on. All right, so what happens after the hospital blows up? Harvey goes after the dirty cops?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the NSA is after that, I'm pretty sure, because that's when Joker's in the building and the ferries are happening.
Right.
Yeah, so right
Harvey goes after some dirty cops. He goes to Maroney.
And he shoots the driver.
Later. But
shoots the driver, does the heads tails thing, and lets Maroney live, but he says that the driver wasn't so lucky. And so he puts the seatbelt on, and then the car flips. I think that's putting a lot of trust into a seatbelt.
Yeah. But Daniel, let me ask you this question.
I guess that's why we need to enforce seatbelts. If seatbelts save lives.
That's right, Shane.
There you go.
But guys, what do you think? Do you think Two-Face, do you think he is justified, Daniel, in getting revenge on those cops who kidnapped, his girlfriend, his fiancée, and put her in the building that was going to explode?
Well, they certainly wronged him, though they both claim to not know what was going to happen, but they must have known that something bad was afoot, right?
You put him in a building filled rigged to explode with all kinds of drums and bombs and stuff.
Well, again, we don't know that they were aware of that level. They just knew that they were picking them up from one place and driving them to another place. So these cops were basically Uber. Like it could have been some of the other.
Somebody tied him up and put him in the chair and put him in amongst all the drums.
Right, yeah, but Joker had all sorts of henchmen. He had some of those clown henchmen. He had people driving vehicle henchmen. He had in the abandoned building
Right.
construction
That's true.
building
We
at the
didn't,
end.
but we don't get to see any of that. That's what my point is. So we don't know if the
Right,
cops just dropped him off or if they actually tied him up and did whatever.
Yeah, so let's say that they really were just Uber and just dropping them off, into the care of some other henchmen, and that was their whole role in it, just a part of the role. Should Harvey be upset with them? Absolutely. But could they be telling the truth and saying they didn't know that they were going to blow them up and disfigure him and kill her? Yeah, I think you could make the argument that they weren't aware of that. They must have known something bad was going to happen because what had happened to everyone else
they're working.
He was killing people.
They're working for the for Joker or the Mafia. Of course, something bad's going to go down. Some shit's going to go down. I mean, you don't expect it all to be good. So yeah, they definitely had some
kidnapping
blame.
Somebody, taking them somewhere where they don't want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So they bear some of the responsibility of what happened, for sure. Now, my question is this Two-Face justified in killing those cops based on that, what he knows?
Well, they weren't initiating any force against him or trying to kill him at that time, so maybe if he just brought them in, or...
Yeah,
well, what if somebody kills your fiance? What if they had actually just killed them? I mean, do you think he has the right to kill them in response?
There's a difference between what you'd feel like you'd do and what is right to do. Like, what the right thing to do is to never kill someone or execute someone. Well, never execute someone, but only kill in self-defense. Because if you don't kill, you might get killed yourself, but never execute them and be against a death penalty. But I guess in Harvey's case, he'd just be so deranged and so angry that he wouldn't give a shit about any type of principles. He just want them dead.
Right.
For
sure. I think it's interesting, though. I mean, if he's insane and he's obviously turned into a criminal guy, but if he's actually justified in what he's doing or not, you know what I'm saying? If he's actually doing something that we would all say is perfectly morally fine, or if he's being a criminal in this case. I don't know. I don't have the answer myself. I'm just curious. You think he's being a criminal, Daniel?
Something else that I think is, even if he's justified in these cases, what he wasn't justified in is trying to kill Gordon's son at the end.
Definitely not. Because that's just what? Because Gordon had crooked cops in his department, and therefore he's punishing him for having crooked cops in his department, right? That was basically Two-Face's argument. Because he had crooked cops, then he's somehow responsible for what they do, what other people do.
Wouldn't Two-Face be just as responsible because it's his DA? Like, he's part of the city government, so are the police. Like, they're all connected at the hip, right?
He did give himself a chance as well. And he did flip the coin for himself.
That's right. He did say he was responsible too. But I think he's completely wrong. Especially are you kidding me? Shoot some little kid? What did that kid little ever do?
Yeah. So even if Two-Face was justified in killing the cops, even though they weren't initiating any force against him, he still would have been at fault. And him going out of his way to be a murderous vigilante would have pretty much freed those 500 people he put away. Right.
And he seems to not care at all, right, about that anymore, about his previous life's work. Once he's been wronged, he just wants justice as he sees it. So, Daniel, you want to talk about the Joker making a news broadcast and telling everybody to get out of town and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I was watching this again last night, and the Joker, after the hospital blows up, he makes an announcement on the TV. He's kidnapped the reporter, and he makes him say, anyone who does want to participate in this game of violence and quote-unquote anarchy needs to leave, but there's a surprise for the bridge and tunnel folks. And so that makes everyone want to escape the city, but there's really no way out. And for whatever reason, they start loading people onto ferries, not realizing that the Joker's not an idiot. So if he's going to remove all of your other options, why wouldn't he have also done something to the fairies? I don't understand why they didn't even question that.
Right.
Because governments are stupid.
Governments are dumb.
But that brings us to the whole fairy problem, which, just described real quickly, is that one is full of normies, women and children, just random commuter types, and the other one is they emptied out the prison because they figured that part of Joker's plan would be to free them from the prison. Right, because that was Scarecrow's tactic, right? Letting them out in Arkham. And so they wanted to get the prisoners out of there, and then, of course, the Joker disables their fairies and then gives them each a detonator and a time limit.
To the other person's boat.
Right. And so that brings up this whole, moral quandary. So what do you think on that, Robert?
Well, it's an interesting thing. So just to lay it all out perfectly, so they each have a detonator for each other's boat, and they're told that as long as they blow up the other person's boat, then you'll live. But if neither of them do it by midnight, then they both blow up. So you got this time crunch, and there's some interesting dialogue that happens on each boat. And what the Joker wants to show is that, they will eat each other as long as they're given a little push to do so. But Batman's like, no, they won't, because people of Gotham believe and they're good. And the normies on the one boat, they say, well, these crooks, they've had their chance, and so they deserve to die, or they deserve to die where we didn't. And then at the end, it ends up being one of the convicts who's like, give it to me. I'll do what you should have done 10 minutes ago, and he takes it and he throws it outside. Do you have some sort of a moral compunction to do it or not do it in this instance? I mean, you're not a moral actor, right? You're under threat of death. The moral actor in this situation is the Joker. So I can't really fault anybody if they had pulled the trigger. Shahin, it seems like you got some things to say about this.
Yeah. One of the things that I had to, that I thought about was the how it was like a democracy. Yeah, the one side, like civvies, they vote, right? They vote. Yeah, they said, we should just vote on this. Yeah, which is essentially what a democracy does, right? Yeah. They vote. And the majority kills. Yeah, majority just decides to kill the other one. But what I thought was pretty good was that both sides in the end decided not to kill the other ones. I mean, and the one thing that we brought up before is that why would you even trust the Joker? I mean, he's put bombs here, he's initiating force. How do you know he won't just blow you all up anyway? And which is what he goes to do, right? At the end. Yeah. So I think they made the right choice, and in the end, just choosing not to kill each other and risking their own lives just so that the other people wouldn't be murdered. Yeah, I think they absolutely make the right choice. But I wouldn't necessarily fault them if they had chosen. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, they are definitely not the moral actor. The fault is entirely on the Joker for putting them in that situation. Exactly.
Yeah, and it is also a thing that puts Batman on the clock to find the Joker, and that's why he uses his sonar NSA system. And I know we talked about that briefly before. Are there any other sticky issues related to that you guys want to bring up about wielding this power just temporarily and then saying they'll never use it again? But of course, if they use it this time, why not next time?
Something came into my mind. I thought in Anarchocapitalist, if something like this, like a system like this could exist. Let's say I have a foreign manufacturing company, and I tell people that there's something we can do if and only if you accept it and you press the setting to activate it, we can make a sonar map of your surroundings. And if there's an emergency, you'd expect all the people to voluntarily give you access to the sonar from their phone. And if enough people just do it, then they'd let you map it onto your thing. I could see something like that. If there's an Amber Alert or some sort of we need to find something or somebody or whatever, if all the people in this area. Or if there's a nuclear or something, then all the people who are affected all turn on their sonars voluntarily, and so that the
y'all get an alert.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
All right, so I have 2 comments on that. Number 1, I think there's an app called Waze, maybe it's WAZE, which essentially does that, and I think Google does this as well, where they'll take your phone's signal and how fast it's traveling to determine what the traffic is like. So it'll indicate green, orange, red. If
is that voluntarily, or does it do that regardless?
You probably have to opt in. Definitely with the Waze app, you need to, because you have to download it and say, I want to participate in this. But I'm not sure if the Google one does or not, but I would imagine that there's some regulations surrounding it.
Yeah, the thing is, I just thought that maybe if people would accept it, and then like a situation like this does arrive, and people voluntarily, instead of everyone just calling in to report, I think I saw the bomb here, I think I saw it there, they just turn on their sonar mode on their phone and just maps out the area for the provider, the manufacturer, and then he can tell the private police where to go and disarm the nuke.
Yeah, so what do you think about the Amber Alert one? Because that is not voluntary. That, I believe, happened during the Obama watch, where they can now push Amber Alerts to your phone whether you like it or not.
Nah, no go. No bueno. Not good.
Yeah, I'm not happy with that. Anything, that's what we all object to, right? Is whether it's voluntary or not. I mean, like Shahin's saying, if this situation existed and it was completely voluntary, then I have no problem with it. But why we object to it in this movie, or at least why I object to it in the movie, is because it's absolutely involuntary. And Batman says it's beautiful, and Lucius Fox says it's beautiful, unethical, and dangerous. And Batman says, I have to find the Joker. And Lucius says, at what cost? Spying on 30 million people isn't in my job description. And because it's absolutely spying, it's absolutely an invasion of privacy.
Something I can add from that, where he says, I've left this all to one man, you. Like, I just thought, well, Morgan Freeman is God, isn't he? So it would make sense.
That does make sense.
All right, so I have a slightly different take on this. Now, because of my distaste for governmental spying, NSA style, but this is private. This is a guy making use of something that's already being voluntarily used by everyone else, their cell phone, not in a way that affects them directly, right?
And he's not collecting any information about them anyway. He's just, as if it's like a satellite imagery.
Right. So whether he's using it or not, your cell phone is operating the same way to you, the same, radio frequencies are being utilized, all those other things. It happened that Batman discovered an unseen, unknown thing that you can do with something that everyone's already doing anyway. So in my mind, it's not a violation in respect that he's not altering anything within anyone's personal property, or in he's not initiating violence against them. He's merely utilizing something that is already happening, and he's able to capture it in a certain way.
So you don't think that this is something that should be disclosed? Oh, by the way, your phone is being used as a sonar device to be able to understand and know intimate details about you and your surroundings.
Well, like, if it was a government, sure. I mean, but the government shouldn't exist. But if it's a private guy who's discovered how to do this, if he wants to commoditize it, then it'll have to become known, right? If he wants to be able to sell it as a service of some sort.
How is this not a private property issue? He's jacking into somebody else's network without their permission.
Well, he's picking
hijacking
up
their signals. Huh?
He's picking up signals that already exist. He's like one more radio picking up a radio broadcast. He just knows how to... He's
turning these phones into broadcasters, though.
But they are broadcasters.
No, this is a specific technology that he developed in the movie, the Lucius Fox did. This didn't already exist. This isn't something that the phones already did. He figured out a way, in the movie they say, we quote, we figured out a way to turn everybody's phone into this. He's modifying their phones.
Okay, you might have
changing their property.
If he's changing their property, then yes. But if he's using like something that's already being emitted, then I think he's totally okay in doing it. But if he is going in and modifying their phones and saying, okay, if we do this little tweak, then we can read their stuff, then he's affected their property. But it's also on a weird matter of scale because, like, for each individual, that aggression is so tiny, but collectively it's a huge thing that's able to be created out of it.
It's like taking a cent from every single person.
Right. Or all those little like extra digits after the period in a number. Yeah, we just take that and put it into our account. It's like a give a penny, take a penny from Office Space.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So Daniel, at the end of the day, are you okay with Batman spying on you in order to find the Joker?
I'm okay so long as it is not something that had to be changed on my phone or anyone else's. If it's something that already exists and he's just able to read it through some technology he's developed, who am I to object to it?
Well, if he's spying on you and he finds out some dirty things about you and...
Yeah, but in AnarchoCapitalist, do you have a right to privacy? Like, is privacy a private property? Is that a property right? The right to privacy? Or is it like a Bill of Rights right? Is it what kind of right is it? Is it a natural right, or is it a contrivance of legal status?
I would say that certain amount of exposing what you don't want exposed is a violation is an aggression. There's a certain amount of your life that you don't want everybody else to know, and you have a right to not have everybody else know.
Mm-hmm.
That a certain amount of exposure of that counts as an aggression.
I think that's a slippery slope.
Of course it is, but are you saying that there's no right to privacy? That everybody has a right to know everybody else's business, everything about everybody?
Not that everyone has a right to know. There's no positive right, but there's also no
but
positive right for privacy.
If I dig up every single thing about you and broadcast it everywhere, that's perfectly fine.
Well, it's not to say there wouldn't be consequences, but I don't know if...
Well, it wouldn't count as an aggression, right? If I made a website called Daniel.com and I listed every single thing that's possible to know about you.
What if it affects him in a negatively way?
You get a lot of hits.
I get all kinds of hits. There's all kinds of dirty stuff you're probably doing. But that's perfect. That's not an aggression?
No, it's a dick move, so there certainly would be consequences. Like maybe I'd open up a Robert one. So we'd have a detente, or it would affect our relationship, or... there's a number of consequences that can result. Like the non-aggression principle isn't an answer to everything, right? But it is a code of conduct that is an acceptable behavior. So I think that, how they have the chip readers or the chip cards, like RFID type credit cards now?
Yeah.
And a big thing that people sell now, like on Amazon, are these RFID resistant wallets, so that you can't be scanned. I think it would be something like that. Like if a technology were developed that people became aware of, then it would be on their onus, on their choice to protect themselves, protect their privacy from the newly perceived or achieved technology that surrounds them. So like the wallets that, hey, I don't want my new credit card thing, or it's even on the passports, right? These RFID things now. People will put their passports in these covers that can't be read by anyone else.
Right. So
so you take steps to improve your private information.
Right. So if you have, are you saying that if I were to broadcast your, all the information needed, your social security number, your address, your bank account numbers, all your passwords, all your bank passwords, everything, that wouldn't be an aggression. But then the people that actually use that information to steal from you would be the aggression? Wouldn't I be complicit in part of the aggression? I'm not facilitating it, wouldn't I be?
I think you do have a point in saying that people are entitled to at least some privacy. It's just you have to justify how much privacy someone can have and how much you can invade someone's privacy until it becomes an aggression.
And I think that's up to each individual to decide how much, if their privacy has been violated or not. There are certain people that live their entire lives, like online and on Instagram and Twitter, and just talking about everything and taking pictures of the food they eat that day.
But isn't that them themselves broadcasting themselves?
Right.
As opposed to someone going and putting private cameras into their houses and...
Right. So there are people that live like on a TV show, like Big Brother or whatever, I don't know if that's still on or whatever, but that's what it was.
I never watched
People live their entire lives. Right, there are people who live their entire lives, on camera, and people that want to do that. But then there are other people that don't want to. So I think it's up to the individual to decide whether or not an aggression has occurred. Daniel, what about the whole Social Security thing? I mean, am I taking part in? If I take all of that private information and broadcast it, am I not taking part in some sort of a crime?
Well, technically, yes, but a Social Security number wouldn't exist in Capistan.
But a private bank account might. In a private bank, all the passwords and all that stuff might.
Right. So wouldn't it be sort of up to me to protect that information from people? Like, if something is private information, wouldn't it be incumbent on me to make sure that it is safe and secret?
So then I could go ahead and hack it with my super hacking tools, and it's not an aggression?
From one side, you can say that it's up to the person with the bank account to have good enough anti-hacking software, which can be provided through the market. And on the other side, you can say that hacking someone's bank account is an initiation of force or aggression on that person's property, which is their wealth in their bank account.
It certainly seems like there's an aggression happening when I hack into your account and get all your account number and then broadcast that out, even if I don't actually steal anything. It seems like I'm facilitating something or doing something against you that you don't want done.
Like we said, it's a dick move at the very least.
All right, well, we need to move on with this movie, guys.
All right, let's move on.
I'm sure there's a big book on this somewhere.
You've got it. Walter Block, Defending the Undefendable, he talks about the slanderer, the blackmailer. There's all sorts of different chapters that would be related to this question. So if that sparks your interest in reading those chapters, maybe you can get back at us and let us know what Walter Block's take on it is.
Oh, I've still got a couple of books I need to read. I got a book by Peter Schiff. I ordered it online. Should come. You know who Peter Schiff is, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's pretty good. Is it The Real Crash or How an Economy Grows? Which
yes, it's the How an Economy Grows and Why It Crashes.
Yeah, that's a good one. I had an illustrated version of it.
Yeah.
I think was originally created by his dad, and then he and his brother updated it.
Erwin Schiff, was that his dad?
Yes.
Who died recently.
Yeah, like a year or two ago in prison in Angola, Indiana.
Yeah. And all because he didn't pay taxes. And then some people say, Peter Schiff's awful, he's the son of a criminal. Like, no, that man's not a criminal. What they did to him was criminal.
Yeah, and actually I think part of the part of the issue was not that he wasn't paying the taxes. I mean, that was a problem, of course, but that he was disseminating information to others, telling them how they could not as well. Something like that. Like, it was a technicality, and they got him based on still continuing to sell his book or something like that. I'm a little fuzzy on details, as per usual. So that'll be the other slogan. Dick move and a little fuzzy on details. That's me.
Good deal. So back in the movie, Batman does turn it on, and he's using this kind of like heads-up display visor thing.
This weird Google VR. It just made me think how much innovation and R&D would have been put into that to be able to instantly get all that data, all that sonar of 30 million phones into just his eyes in real time.
Right. Yeah, he's got
was it Bluetooth or did it run on like 4G or 10G or what?
Right, some direct satellite uplink speed. Crazy. Like
the Bat satellite.
That's right.
The Batellite.
Maybe the pointy ears work as antennas or something.
Right, so Batman uses all this data, and he is able to take down the cops who are attacking because the hostages have been switched with the clowns, and he's the only one that knows for some reason. He couldn't just tell Gordon that, oh, by the way, the situation is flipped. We had to have like an action scene. Whatever.
That was my favorite scene from the entire movie, if I had to pick one. Because it just shows how stupid the government and the SWAT is, how stupid the police are. And they were about to go there, kill all the innocents and then get killed by the terrorists who are pretending to be the doctors. And then Batman goes there, beats up the doctors, saves the hostages, and then beats the shit out of the sword as well. That was a good scene.
Right. So he ends up dueling with the Joker. Joker set some dogs on him.
Yeah, and Peter, I have a note here that the Peter fascists would have been crazy that Batman beats the dogs.
That's a true story.
They should not go to China.
So he ends up throwing Joker out of like a window, and Joker's falling to his death, and he saves him, and then they have a nice little one-to-one chat where the Joker says that you won't kill me out of some misplaced sense of self-righteousness. And again, I kind of agree with the Joker here. It's perfectly fine to kill the Joker if it's in self-defense of another person, which is what he's basically doing the entire movie. But Batman has this weird code that he doesn't have to do it and he won't do it, which, of course, leads to further Batman adventures, right? Because, Batman really does have the best rogues gallery in all of comics. He's got the Penguin, he's got the Joker, he's got Two-Face, there's a Riddler and Catwoman. He's just really cool characters. You can't just kill them off. So it kind of fits with the whole story. But I would agree that it is kind of a misplaced sense of self-righteousness that stops him from killing the Joker. Not to say that he would be responsible for any further murders that happen, but Joker's going to murder people again in the future. And he's about to kill someone right now. So, I wouldn't really fault the guy if he did kill him.
Well, wouldn't you argue that the Joker was attempting to kill Batman, or even if he wasn't intending to, he was still attacking him with like a metal pipe and had the dogs sick on him? So Batman could have died as a result, so he could have been defending himself with a deadly threat.
Sure, although we know that Joker says, I won't kill you because you're too much fun. We pretty much understand that Joker loves Batman in a way. He essentially completes him. He says earlier in the movie, you complete me.
He's like
However, he still does attack him, and, you never know what happens in an attack. The risk of death's always there. What if he accidentally stabs him in the throat?
Right, sure. As we've made
Batman would be justified in murdering a lot of people. Anyone that attacks him, pretty much.
Sure.
But the thing about Batman is he only ever really attacks people who were initiating force against others in some way. So if they try to kill Batman, they wouldn't be justified because Batman is preventing them from initiating force.
Yeah. So, I think it's kind of a hokey thing, a trope to basically continue telling Batman stories till the end of time. But, it's also a popular
It was
thing.
Actually... when comics first came out, Batman used to just shoot people with machine guns and hang them from his bat plane.
That's right, he did.
Yeah, and he'd kick them in the neck and snap their necks. But since then, comics became very politically correct because everyone thought comics are bad, they're brainwashing your children, just bullshit like that. So they made Batman not kill. This is the Silver Age of comics. Batman didn't kill; it was just politically correct, and the Joker didn't kill either. All he cared about was playing pranks on people. And then it wasn't until later in a couple of decades after, where they started killing and doing sinister stuff again. But by that time, Batman's no-killing rule was already established. So,
yeah. They just kept it up. It's funny that, Batman used to be, back in the golden age of comics, he was just a murderer. He would just kill. Yeah. Well, I don't know if he was actually, I would have to actually read the stories, but I've seen the panels of the comics where he's just, killing people. So he has changed quite a bit over the years. And then the last scene is really the showdown where Dent has kidnapped Gordon's family and threatens to kill his son, blames Gordon for the corruption in his department. And then something
that stood out to me is when he said, we're trying to be decent men in an indecent time, which kind of goes well with us ANCAPs. We're trying to be ideological and get change, be decent people in an indecent status time.
Sure. Yeah, good point. I would agree with that. Here we are saying that, be moral and stuff, and everybody else is like, who cares? Let's be pragmatic and go along with what works and whatever.
Tax the rich to pay for single-payer healthcare.
Yeah, it just happens to go along with what we believe, though, is that our system actually would work better. I think we've proved beyond a reasonable doubt that, Austrian economics and leaving people to be free is
not only is it morally correct, it's economically as well.
Yeah, it's far economically superior.
Yeah, it's philosophically and economically superior. Not for the ones at the top, though. They thrive on cronyism.
Absolutely right. Yeah, there are those ticks that will feed off the host.
Yeah, something I've noticed.
They
would probably still do well in a ANCAP society, right? They wouldn't just sit there helpless.
The parasites?
Yeah, they couldn't be parasites any longer, so they'd have to be productive. Not that they'd be super rich like they are, but they'd be better off than the average person is today, because we would all be better off, right?
Right.
Because competition, lower prices, high quality.
No sanctioned violence. Yeah. So they'd still be pretty well off. I mean, you can't really compare like interpersonal satisfactions across people, but you could imagine that if we all had, 5 times the wealth as far as productivity gains and technology, that we'd all be having it pretty good. Like, we can all look back 100 years, 200 years, and realize that I wouldn't want to trade places with anyone living in those times, because they had dirt floors and well blubber lamps and outdoor plumbing.
No. Yuck.
Really terrible.
And then the funny thing is, all these ANCOMs want post-scarcity or whatever. The only way you can achieve that, or at least get close to that, is through Austrian economics and a free market, which is the irony. Them becoming Marxist and communist will actually take them away, make them more inefficient, take them away from that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about satisfying desires. Capitalism solves that way better than Marxism does. I mean, if you look back at the supermarkets in the Soviet era, I mean, you had like 2 different types of cheeses and one kind of milk, one kind of bread.
Yeah.
And
you have Venezuela right now. And the socialists say Venezuela is not even real socialism. It's like, just shut up.
Yeah, really. It's always no true Scotsman fallacy with those guys. It's like, how many times do you have to implement it before it's real?
Right, but they always
it's real until
and say that it's not real capitalism, or we say it's not real capitalism, which is true.
But the thing, our hampered capitalism with a bit of state is still far better than their imperfect socialism. And like if you look at all the communists tweeting about Venezuela, they were all praising it just a couple of years ago. So it's always communism or socialism until it starts fucking up. So when it fucks up, then it just stops being real socialism.
Just like with Bernie Sanders, it's only bank fraud if it's the rich people on Wall Street. Until he does it.
The millionaires and billionaires.
Yeah. Now he's being investigated for bank fraud or something along those
lines. For the FBI, him and his family.
Yeah, but it's democratic bank fraud, so it's okay.
Exactly, yeah. The same way he has a democratic beach mansion.
That's right.
Well, he needs it. It's what he needs, Shahin. It's okay.
Yeah. To each according to their needs, of course.
1 second, guys. I'll be right back. Talk amongst yourself.
All right. So I think we're about done here.
No, almost.
Do you have any more notes or any other scenes you want to go back to at all before we wrap everything up?
I had a couple more things. One of them was that the spy gear was destroyed. They actually destroyed it and got rid of it.
Right.
Which just puts Batman how much above government? Because they still have that shit going on now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's probably even more enhanced than when Snowden was around. It's been 4 or 5 years. But, even though Batman had that thing destroyed, well, he had the first one made, could certainly do it again. So it's almost a symbolic destruction.
But then one could argue that if someone knows how to build an atomic bomb, or if I know how to kill someone, I'm choosing not to do it. I mean, Batman has the ability to make a bomb, but he's choosing not to do it.
Right, he's choosing not to, but he also has shown that he's willing to use it, and that he's not principled, because he's shown that he'll break principle in extreme cases and tell himself that he's only going to do it the one time. But as you know,
that one time can happen over and over again.
Right, because what
about the next time?
Yeah, the next Joker. That's the question I have: is do they cover what happened to Joker?
Oh no, they don't mention him at all in Dark Knight Rises.
No, so
out of respect for Heath Ledger. Yeah, he's just, as Batman said, locked in a padded cell forever.
Okay.
And
I was a little surprised they killed off Two-Face like right away. Like he was Two-Face for like a day.
Yeah. And, two other things that I had was that Harvey Dent, he's a murderer and a madman, tried to kill a kid. And then he was praised as a hero, similar to some other presidents who bombed several kids in like Iraq or Yemen or something, and they're praised as heroes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had to maintain the lie, right? Because he was the great white knight, like the great hope. And that is, of course, distasteful. Like I think that his actions should have been probably
tell the
more
truth.
known.
Do you think, Daniel, he should have been exposed and then those guys should have been released?
Maybe they could. I mean, couldn't they? There's two things that I always thought. Couldn't they just blame the killings on the Joker? Or, and if not that, then couldn't they have still somehow kept them locked up while still saying Harvey Dent did this?
Yeah, it wasn't exactly clear to me why all of a sudden, just because if Harvey Dent commits a crime, all of a sudden his past work gets completely called into question and thrown out. I mean,
but then again, they did say it was because they wanted to motivate the city to make the people believe in good.
Yeah, I don't really know that.
Which ironically, at the end of Dark Knight Rises, people's symbol of good becomes Batman.
But whereas at the end of this one, he's being hunted because he's a killer, apparently. Which, do they play into that? Because he's like running.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. That's one of the best scenes in the next movie.
Okay, now I'm going to have to watch that one. It's on my list.
Yeah, maybe we're going to have to watch that one.
And we'll have you back.
Have to do part 2, part 3.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, well, I think that pretty much wraps our movie. Any other notes from you, Robert?
No, that does it. Other that, Lucius destroys the thing as he walks away, types his name, and the thing blows up. And, Batman takes all the fall, and, that's the end of the movie. Because he's the hero we need, or not the hero we deserve, or whatever they said.
What does that even mean? Like, I don't know, but it just sounds really cool.
Pretty much. But yeah, it was at the time, I think it was probably the best superhero movie I'd seen. I think those movies are pretty stand-up. Rewatching it, I mean, Ledger's performance was fantastic. It's a shame that he died from a prescription medication overdose of some kind, or I don't know. We've talked this movie to death. But I would like to have our guest on to come back and do Dark Knight Rises.
Definitely.
Sounds like something we could do.
Yeah. So you just started with your final analysis. So let's bring in our rating system of the black and gold or the black and red. So what do you say, Robert?
That's right.
This is absolutely a black and gold, best movie ever. This was at the time the pinnacle of comic book movies. I mean, it's like Christopher Nolan just came in and, no, this is how you do it, guys. And yeah, it's a darker Batman, but Batman's always been a dark character except for Adam West Batman, which was ironically
and George Clooney.
Oh, yeah, well, those movies don't exist, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, they're not real.
That was just a figment of somebody's imagination, Joel Schumacher's imagination, and I choose not to believe they exist. I'm not a fan of Bale's gravel voice, but that's quibbling. I think he does a pretty dang good Bruce Wayne, pretty dang good Batman. He's not my favorite Batman. Kevin Conroy's voice is my favorite Batman.
Oh, that's right.
Heath Ledger's Joker is the pinnacle of that. But overall, really good movie, except for the few quibbles that we've mentioned throughout this episode and the previous episode. But yeah, still best movie ever. Black and gold, baby.
All right, Shahin, your final analysis and your rating.
No, I first watched this movie when I was a little kid, and I didn't fully understand exactly what was going on. And like I try to watch it numerous times, but I just get too confused. The first time I actually did sit down and watch it, I was just completely blown away by just how the story fit together and how it was just a huge puzzle full of metaphors and foreshadowing that all just came together in this huge spectacular event. So yeah, that was definitely my favorite movie that I had seen at that point, and I could argue that it still is, although I have seen a bunch of other Batman movies, and aside from the Joel Schumacher series, I'd say they're all pretty good, but yeah, definitely Black and Yellow.
Daniel?
All right. Well, it's going to go Black and Golds all around, though I think I liked it better when I first saw it, and then when you start tearing it apart and deconstructing it, you start to see these little holes, and then they start nagging at you. So now I'm going to have so much trouble watching this again. I had to watch it 1.5 times to do this show, so the first time through, and then we sort of got lost in where we were during the first show, so I watched the second half of it. And yeah, there's just little things that are just hanging out there that kind of bother me now. So I will have difficulty watching this particular one again, but I am excited to watch The Dark Knight Rises. I know it can't be nearly as good, but I think it'll be interesting to kind of know how it resolves in the third act. So Black and Gold for me as well.
Excellent. So let's wrap this baby up. Thanks for listening to the Actual Anarchy podcast. I've been Robert Paul Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Daniel, you want to say some closing things?
Yeah, and then I'll hand the floor to Shahin. You can say whatever you want to our audience and let them know you're going to come back for Dark Knight Rises at some point soon. But yeah, we are Actual Anarchy Podcast. This is the actualanarchy.com. This will be /29, this episode, the Dark Knight or Dark Knight Part 2. We've got Amazon links. We've got over 550 quotes now on the actualanarchy.com/quotes. I just added a bunch of Robert Heinlein, a bunch of Ron Paul, a bunch of Ayn Rand. There's a whole bunch of stuff up there that's really, really cool. We've got the Liberty Classroom links for Tom Woods. We've just launched Conquest of Bread, and we're going to start doing refutations of that chapter by chapter. We're even considering maybe doing like roundtable discussions about each chapter for like a half hour to 45 minutes to create a video series related to that as well. So a lot of ideas percolating over here from your folks at Actual Anarchy, Read Rothbard, and Conquest of Bread. So I'm going to hand it over to Shahin, and then we'll say goodnight.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening. It's a great experience to be on, and I definitely look forward to coming back again next time.
Fantastic. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, you're excellent. So we would definitely be on board for that. So with that, everyone, Black and Golds all around, actualanarchy.com/29. We'll see you around the bend on the next episode of the Actual Anarchy podcast. Same bat time, same bat station. Good night, folks.
The Chipmunks. CHIPMUNK. We're the Chipmunks. Guaranteed to brighten your day. Do 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 do.